Hello, it's your girl Tiffany, and I'm in my kitchen this evening putting together a butter cake, classic butter cake, because I mean I gotta taste the cake, and what better cake to eat than my own. So I already got all the stuff measured out, and this particular cake is a really simple cake. You don't have to cream anything together, crack eggs separately one at a time into the bowl, none of that. It's pretty much a dump cake. So right here what we have is 3 cups of all-purpose flour in this bowl right here, and in this bowl right here we have 2 cups of granulated sugar, a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of baking powder, and a half a teaspoon of baking soda. So what we're going to do is take the flour, dump it into this big bowl right here. Now, me personally, even if the recipe doesn't say sift the flour, I like to whisk it a little bit just to make sure, you know, all the lumps are out or whateber. I'll get my whisk so I can get my life together over here. Alright, so then we're going to take this right here and dump it in here. I told you guys what's in here: the baking soda, baking powder, salt, 2 cups of sugar. Okay. So then we're gonna take some good old butter. This recipe calls for, let's see, a cup of butter. So that's gonna be 2 sticks of butter. Just in case you guys don't know, a stick of butter is a half a cup of butter. So, you know, remember that tip when you're baking and cooking and whatnot. I like to get all the butter, so I'm just going to break that on the side of the bowl a little bit. Put another one. Oh, look at all that. Butter is better, baby. I put butter in everything at my house, so if you come over here, don't be telling me about your cholesterol, because that's not my problem. So, okay, that's a cup of butter in there. Into that, we're going to add the vanilla. And this recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Okay, let's find my teaspoon. Over here, over here. I'm going to measure that right over the bowl. 1, 2, and a little tap for, you know, good measure, because I love vanilla. This recipe also requires that you put 4 eggs in, which I already cracked into this bowl right here. I'm just going to put that in there. Now remember, this is a dump cake, so if you wonder why I'm just willy-nilly putting everything in there, that's what it is. Probably the simplest cake, the most simple cake that I've ever made. Oh yes, my mother told me to remind you guys that all of your ingredients, well, not the milk, but like your eggs and butter need to be room temperature when you're baking. It just makes for better incorporation. So, one more thing. Oh, and a cup of buttermilk. So where's my cup? Measuring cup. Here we go. I'm just gonna take that right here. Measure out exactly 1 cup of good buttermilk. And guys, I just moved to Stone Mountain, Georgia. You see that? Whole cultured buttermilk. I don't think I've ever seen that in my life. Like, every time I go to the supermarket in New York, everything is light, half fat. Like, I didn't know buttermilk was supposed to be, they had diet versions. Like, what is that? But anyway, so we're going to slowly whisk it together, making sure not to let all the ingredients fly out the pan. I mean, out the bowl. You're going to have to put some wrist work into this. Now, I could have used my mixer, which is what I usually do. But since it was a dump cake, I just decided to do it in a bowl just to see how it will all come together and how it will turn out. Just trying something different, because as you will learn from watching my channel, I am extra. Anytime I can break out my good old KitchenAid, I'm for it. Like, but yeah. banging. It's a thick batter too. Talk about old school, huh? Now, if you like me, you got carpal tunnel, you're gonna put a little extra work into this, but it's all right. Mix it. You want to mix it until everything is well incorporated. You don't want to see no crystals of sugar or flour in the bottom of the bowl. Scrape that bowl. Tip it to the side if need be. Make sure you get the bottom. Okay, that's enough of this whisk. I'm going to get me a little spoon or spatula because my wrist is like, hell no. Even though this is probably too small, I need to invest in a bigger one, but my good old scraper spatula that says, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it says tasty. And my favorite color, blue. Oh yes, that's much better. Ooh, Jesus, won't he do it? Okay, so everything is nice and incorporated into there. Now originally, this was supposed to be a bundt cake, but being that I just moved and I can't find my bundt pan, we're just gonna put it in this 10-inch spring foam. But let me come a little closer so you guys can see the batter. Everything nice and incorporated. No flour streaks. Nice and thick. Now, I'm just gonna set this to the side for a minute. Now the next step with this cake, most dense cakes in particular, old school method before parchment paper, what you do is you butter your pan very well and then you dust it with flour. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Now what I do is, a little trick I learned from Paula Deen, you save these butter wrappers, right? You take it, put the inside down in your pan, and slather it. It's supposed to help your hands not get messy and I guess hope you get all your money's worth. But I love to do this, and I love to do these. Sometimes, if I don't use them, I take them and put them all in a Ziploc bag and put them in the refrigerator so that when I bake or I want to make some cookies, I can just take one of these out and rub down the parchment or whatever the case may be. So now that I have that nice and buttered, you see, every crevice, butter. And I'm sorry for these camera angles, like, I'm new to this recording thing, but you get the picture. Butter that. Then you get you a little bit of flour. Now it doesn't have to be some huge, some huge amount of flour because we're gonna dump it all out. You just want it to be like evenly coated. Usually I just put like a tablespoon in there or two, just to be on the safe side. Whatever. You take the pan and you tap it. You see that? Tap and turn. Tap and turn. Tap and turn. Now, usually when you do the edges, you do the same thing, but you're tapping the flour down so that you can make sure you get those edges nice and floured. I'm getting flour. I usually do this over the sink, but for the sake of showing you guys, I'm going to do it right here and get flour all over my counter. Now you see that? Take the excess flour, dump it in the sink, and tap the pan on the side of the sink just to get the excess flour off. There you go. Now you see that? This is what you would call a perfectly buttered and floured pan. I have my oven preheating over here at 325, and what I'm going to do now is the simple part. You just, well, actually this whole cake was simple, but just take this batter, scrape it down into the pan. There we go. Get all your batter out. Now, this should turn out just as good as if you use a 10 or 12-inch bundt pan. But again, since I can't find mine, we're going to be using this 10-inch spring foam. And yeah, it just won't have a hole in the middle. Okay. Now, pick your pan up, shake that around a little bit. This batter is hefty. This is not like a, I don't know, old school trick I learned from my grandmother. I always shake and drop. Shimmy and drop. It's supposed to release air bubbles. But with cakes this dense, yeah, it usually doesn't work. So what I do sometimes is take a knife and just go around it a couple times just to release any air in the batter so you don't have holes all through your cake. And you can see I actually swirled the knife around inside of there. Cool. Alright, so what I'm going to do is take this over to my oven, which, like I said, has been preheating at 325. I'm going to put that on the middle rack. You don't want it too high because then the heat will burn the top too quickly. Brown the top too quickly. You don't want it too low because then you'll burn the bottom up. Make sure your rack is centered. And what I'm going to do today, which I never used it because I'm so old school, I'm going to set a timer for this. And this cake says it takes about 60 to 65 minutes. So what I'm going to do is set it for 1 hour. You see that? 1 hour equals 60 minutes. Okay? And yeah, I guess that green light means that it's starting. So there you go. 325, people. 1 hour. After that hour, I'll probably check it probably at 55 minutes just because this new stove of mine is electric and I'm not really sure about this whole electric stove situation. So yeah, many don't burn no cake, okay? So I'll probably check it a little bit early just to make sure everything is okay. And I'll bring you guys back with me then.